And we are live here. Once again, I jumped in a couple minutes early. I'm going to be bringing on shortly Mr. Mike Zvolanek. He's he's been a friend and a mentor to me for over 20, 25 years or so. He'll get into some of the background, but I'm excited everybody's coming in, and we'll be talking about building wealth today. So let me bring in Mr. Mike Zvolanek. Hey, Mike.
Hey, JR. How you doing?
I'm doing real well. Just put a little introduction out there for you. And if you want to go ahead and give some of your background, and then we'll get in. How did you retire? How did you decide to retire early? You know, and some of the advantages and capabilities and percentages of the trading that you do. So why don't you go ahead and kick off your background and why how this has changed. I ask you that because a lot of people, as you can imagine, almost everybody wants to be able to have that financial security, let's call it, and being able to use their money more wisely. So
yeah,
stage is yours, Mike.
All right. Well, a little bit of background. As JR mentioned, we've known each other for a lot of years from a distance in most cases because we never lived in the same location. First, he was out in California. I've always been in Texas, but the company that I worked for was out of Milwaukee. But I'm 69. I retired when I was 61. Actually, I'm 69 this month. But I retired when I was 61, and I decided to retire early because I think the time was right. I had spent a lot of time in building wealth in my young years and saving money. Married to my wife of 53 years, Ginny, and if you do the math, we got married young. We got married when we were 16. As JR knows, I was in the plastics industry for a lot of years, and
yes,
traveled the whole United States in selling equipment. Both JR and I are salesmen in the plastics industry, sales engineers, really. But I never got to college. In my whole career, was spent basically seat of the pants as far as when I got married young at 16, I didn't have the ability to go to college. I had to work for a living, right? So
right.
That's not quite true because when I was 58 years old, about 3 years before I retired, I did go back to college and got my Bachelor's of Science degree. And 3 years later, I retired, so I never really used it as an advantage. But Ginny and I come from humble means. Both of our families are blue-collar families, probably lower middle class. When I was growing up, I lived in a mobile home most of my life before going into high school.
I've been there.
Married. Yeah. We have two sons, 45 and 42. And you're successful when your kids are successful. And both of my sons are very successful in their own businesses. Both are working in IT, different companies. But for a while, they were actually worked for the same company. Topgolf. My older son still works for Topgolf, and my younger son is now living in Denver, working for a new startup operation.
That there is the paramount of a successful life, like you said. Why don't we get in now? Why don't we kind of drive forward? And happy belated or happy upcoming birthday, by the way.
Thank you.
How did you make the decision? You retired at 61. How did you make that decision, and how were you able to make that decision to retire early?
Right. Of course, when I made that decision, I had to make sure that I had enough money to survive for Ginny and I until I turned 65 for retirement. Because actually 66 years and 2 months was my retirement age for Social Security. So I had basically 4 years to survive with private health insurance, etc., before I was able to get on Medicare and then start collecting Social Security. Of course, you always have Social Security. You can always take Social Security at 62. However, I chose to wait because I didn't want. If you take it early, then your benefit is less. So now I'm 69, and I still haven't taken Social Security benefits yet. The longer you wait, the more benefit package that you have later in life. But anyway, when I decided to retire, I had to look at my portfolio and find out, do I have enough money to survive? So at that point, I looked. I had about $1 million of net assets, or actually I had about $1.4 million, but I had a $400,000 mortgage as well. So net basis
that you
about
pay.
$1 million.
Sorry for interrupting. So at 61, you retired, and we'll get into how do you make that that income, but also we are looking at different ways to move forward. And I kind of lost my train of thought there. Sorry about that, Mike. So when you decided to retire at 61, I assume you're going to eventually take some, that retirement benefit later on. How does that work? You're on retirement at retirement age, and you can draw from that. What are your plans with that? I'll just kind of sidetrack a little bit here, but do you understand what I'm asking you, Mike?
Yeah, I think so, JR. The key is that you got to generate income, and in your working career, as we all grew up in our 20s, 30s, 40s through the 50s and things, your whole key is to build enough wealth that you can change from a earned income into a passive income. And so the $1 million that I had, I knew that I was going to burn through some of that money because I still had to live. And even back in those, in 8 years ago, it still cost roughly $100,000 to live, to pay mortgages, taxes, insurance, food, all the necessities of life. So I still had to generate enough income to survive, including building wealth, right? You want to continue to make sure that your money lasts. But in your early years, you're earning income. In your later years, you want to change that so that you have passive income. And passive income comes from your wealth that you built earlier in life. And that wealth is, whether it be assets, whether it be stock, whether it be rental property, whether it be just cash in a bank. So your asset base has to turn around and generate income for you to live on through your retirement. So that $1 million that I had, I knew that I was going to burn through a portion of that to get to 65. But I was also a fairly good money manager, and I had learned to play stocks and options. And so,
real quick, let me just interject. When you say that in $1.5 million, you knew you were going to burn through that pretty quick. What I know there are all kind of different lifestyles and revenue needed for those lifestyles, or money needed for those lifestyles. What do you think should be a number around about where people can, let's say, not outlive? Yeah, no, not outlive, where they get their same revenue,
right,
so that they can have the same lifestyle that they've had before.
Understand. Well, that's an excellent question, and that's certainly a question that you need to ask when you're planning your retirement.
Right.
Whether it be if you're planning on retiring at 65, if that's 10 years from now, if you're 55 and you're planning on retiring at 65, you have to project both the inflation, the rate of inflation out. For me, my goal was $100,000 a year. And so I figured with $1 million in the bank in asset value that I had at least 10 years of living. If I never generated another dollar, I figured I could live for 10 years. However, we've also
with that $1 million, you would run out of money in 10 years from 61.
Yes, if I didn't generate another dollar, in income from passive
Right.
income, I would have run out of money. Because taxes still continue even into retirement. And I had a friend once tell me that he retired 10 years before me, still a good friend of mine, but I used to find it strange because he'd make a statement, wow, I'm paying more taxes in retirement now than I ever paid when I was working. And I didn't
Really?
understand that. Yeah, I didn't understand that. I said, well, how can you pay more taxes now? He said, well, because you got to remember that all your IRA money becomes taxed to you when you start to take that money out in retirement. And
True.
so,
Yeah.
and you're forced, once you turn 73, you're forced to take that money out of retirement, whether you need it or not. So you have what they call RMDs, required minimum distributions. So at 73, I'm not there yet, but at 73, you start the government forces you to take your money out and pay those taxes that you deferred earlier in your career through 401k. And so
I did not know that you have to take the money out at some point, whether you need it or not. Right.
Right. That's correct. And it's based on your life expectancy. Yeah, I think for men it's somewhere around 84 years. For women it's around 86. That may change year to year, but they figure if if you're 74 and you got 10 years to live, you have to take that money out in 10 years. So every year you have to take a portion of that money out.
Well, let's jump right into the meaty good stuff here.
All right.
Not that everything wasn't good stuff already. No, I'm not saying that. Anyway, so how do you generate income in the stock market? We've talked about you need a certain amount, and so there's I'm basic. I'm right from the beginning here. And by the way, producer Barbie's on, and she is new to the stock exchange, and you're working with her. She's brand new and working towards your example here. So how do we generate income in the stock market? How do you generate it? Sorry.
Yeah, that's the change from earned income to passive income that I talked about.
Right.
And I learned how to trade options, and it goes back to a story back in the if you recall the real estate bust back in 2008, 2009, 2010. A lot of companies went out of business. Lehman Brothers is history. Goldman Sachs filed bankruptcy.
You got a wild dog back there, don't you?
Yeah, he's in the other room barking out of the window at the squirrels.
Oh, it's squirrels?
Yeah. I was talking to my accountant when the real estate bust happened. Goldman Sachs filed bankruptcy, come out of bankruptcy 3 months later, and then the next quarter, the Goldman Sachs posted earnings something close to $10 billion in earnings. And I said, how in the world does that work? I was talking to my CPA. How can a company come out of bankruptcy and then the next quarter, when you go into bankruptcy, you write off all your debts, right? So they wrote off all the debts. They started over, and then the next quarter they earned $10 billion. When they earned $10 billion, they're not obligated to go back and pay those previous debts. So I said, well, that doesn't make sense to me. How did Goldman Sachs make all that money? And my CPA told me, trading options. And I said, I don't even know what options are. What is options? And he says, Mike, if you want to make money like the big boys, you have to trade like the big boys. And I said, that makes sense. So that was the epiphany for me to go out and learn what options were and figure out if I could trade it and learn what they are and how to trade them. So that's what I did. I went out, learned what options were, got involved in it. And I said, hey, this is pretty cool because I can take asset value and create wealth by using that asset value to generate passive income. And so options for me is exactly that. I trade options almost every day, not every day, but almost every day. And then at least I'm making money from using the assets in my account. Now, so how did I get here? I started out with $1 million. I started trading options and stock. I'm really a hybrid trader in the sense that I'm not strictly an option trader. I do have stocks that I hold, and I trade options on those stocks as well. But the passive income comes mostly from option trading. And to give you a context of where I'm at now versus then, I'm probably about, as I mentioned, 8 years ago, I was about $1 million net worth. And here I am 8 years later, and I'm probably fivefold that number. And
say that again. So fivefold of what you started with. Was that 8 years ago? So in 8 years, you've five times. Yeah. Okay. All
yes.
right. All right.
And
So,
no debt, no
so
mortgage, and a lot of money in the bank account or the brokerage account where I continue to trade options on it every day.
So when we were talking the other day about this, we've talked several times on it, and when you said that options are the most traded, I'm not saying the words right, but options are the most traded over stocks.
Yeah.
And I didn't even know about that. Why doesn't more people have access to? I see Barbara put here the this needs to be talked about in the mainstream media. I don't know if there's an answer to this, but why is it that way? Why don't people know?
Well, there is, JR, and for years, option trading was really only done by the big guys, the institutional traders, what's referred to as whales, the big individual guys like Warren Buffett's and Elon Musk, etc. Those guys knows options inside and out, and that's who primarily did options back in the early years. When I got into it, retail traders, and I'm just a simple small retail trader, it was relatively new. And so there was a couple of companies and individuals that tried to promote it. With TD Ameritrade was a big one in that space because they really promoted teaching people how to trade options. And so back in those days, we're talking now 25 years ago or so, that option trading wasn't big for retail traders. It's became a lot bigger for retail traders today, and it continues to grow year by year. But the comment I think that you're referring to that we discussed is that if you look at options, I mean, if you look at stock trades, like on a busy day, NVIDIA may trade 200 million shares of stock in a single day. And that's a huge number, right? Apple will be up
200 million?
Yeah. Apple, if you look at Apple just today, and the market's only been open for a while, Apple's already traded 10 million shares just in the first couple of hours or hour and a half of the market open. So there's millions of shares that's traded in actual stock that's traded hands. In options, and I'll come back to this in a minute to explain what an option is, but options are based on it's called a derivative because it derives its value from something else, from the stock, from the price of the stock. So an option becomes a bet on the stock's price movement. So one option contract represents 100 shares. And so an option contract controls 100 shares of stock. So if you look at the 10 million shares of Apple, almost 11 million now that's traded this morning, there's 7 times as many option contracts controlling shares than it's actually traded on the stock market. And that's a huge number, right? If it's 7 to 1, sometimes it's even higher than that, just depending on market activity and earnings times and that sort of thing. But that's
is that because they're in multiples of 100, or is it?
Well, it's the volume is basically controlling blocks of shares, right?
Right.
And so you have to go back to defining what an option is. But if you look at it from just a pure stock scenario, there's more options traded that control stocks than there are shares that's traded on a given company. And,
All right, gotcha.
And so when I looked at that, that was an epiphany for me too. Wow, if there's more options traded, then maybe I need to look at trading more in options than I do in stock. And that was an epiphany for me also to dig into and to find out more about what options are. So let me backtrack a little bit and explain what an option is, because as you mentioned, not a lot of people understand them and not a lot of people know what they are.
Never heard of it before.
An option is traded just like stocks are traded on the exchange. So there's a ready market for them out there, just like you can go buy 100 shares of NVIDIA or Apple. You can buy 1 or 2 contracts of the same thing, of NVIDIA, etc. But an option, the easy way to explain what an option is a bet. It's I liken it to a football game. If you're betting on the Chicago Bears, for example, your bet, if you're betting the Chicago wins the game coming up Sunday, there might not be a good bet.
The odds are pretty low.
Yeah.
It started out really great. And, I said to some friends, oh, it sucks being a Bears fan, man, now. It just all this opportunity. But anyway, go ahead. It's like betting on a football game.
Yeah, I like the joke. The Cowboys are in terrible shape too, and so I understand the concept here. I like the joke. The other day, I was thumbing through the television channels trying to find something to watch, and I saw a channel that said "The Biggest Loser," and I flipped it on, and it was the Cowboys playing football.
Really? That's good. That's good. I was watching some things the other day, and cars were pulling up to fans coming out of the Bears thing, and they said, "Hey, you dropped something back there. You dropped something back there," and then they turn around and they go, "I think it's an L."
Yeah. Well, back to an option. What an option is, it's a bet. So if you place a bet on a football game, you can place that bet any way that you want to. You can bet the spread. You can bet the total points, over and under on total points. You can even bet on who has the first touchdown, etc. So there's 100 ways to bet on a football game. But your bet on the football game has no basis on, it doesn't change the outcome of the game. So it doesn't matter how many people are betting for the Bears to win. That doesn't change the fact that they may lose. But it's still a bet. And so an option contract is always a bet on the direction of the stock. But there's always a spread. Yeah, just like in football, if you were to bet on a football game, it's not just who wins and loses; it's who wins by how much points. So if the Bears or Cowboys or really suck, I can bet that they're going to get beat by 20 points, or it's going to be closer by 10 points, or whatever I want to bet. I can play those odds to make it in my favor. And the beauty of options, unlike a football bet or a bet in Las Vegas, the beauty of the options is I know exactly what my odds are before I ever place my bet. And I get to choose.
Explain that. How do you know what your odds are? And we'll get into it here in a second. Let's roll right into what are the odds that you average in this trading. But yes, explain how you're making a bet and you know exactly the percentage of how much that has in winning or not winning.
Yeah, and well, let's take the example of NVIDIA stock, or let me back up to Apple, because I have Apple on the screen. Apple is trading at $243 this morning per share. Okay, and so I can bet that Apple stays above a certain price by expiration on Friday. Okay, and I can do that every Friday. So example is today's Wednesday. For December the 6th, which is Friday, if I bet that Apple stays above $240, it's $243 right now. If I bet that it stays above $240, I can make 39 cents a share right now in 2 days. That 39 cents a share times one contract being 100 shares, that's $39. Okay.
Wow.
So
Wow.
I can earn $39 if I agree to buy Apple stock for $240 a share in 2 days. Okay. So that if it doesn't happen, I keep my $40. I win the bet. And I can even look at the screen and tell you what my odds are of that happening. It's 81%. It's 81%.
Fascinating.
It's 81% that Apple will not drop to 240 by Friday. So 81% is pretty good odds, right? I mean,
I'd say it's real good odds.
Yeah, if you go to Las Vegas, there's no bet in Vegas that's 50-50, right? If it was, they couldn't have the lights on. So all bets are in the house's favor. So in this case, I play the house, and that's the key here. You know, it's really interesting because you say, well, you're a gambler. Well, yeah, I'm a gambler in the truest sense of the word, but I'm not a gambler to Vegas. It's really interesting because my wife loves to play slots. Jenny loves to go sit in front of the slot machine. It's the worst bet in Vegas, right? Because the odds are terrible.
Yep.
And so,
odds,
she can't understand why that I can sit there and watch her have fun playing slots, and I don't have the urge to put money in the machine. And she just finds that not exciting that I'm there to watch. But the truth of the matter is, I know what my odds are, and it's not good, so I don't play. I only play.
And you do the Vegas thing basically every Friday or every day, because you're looking at an odd of it'll stay this number or go down this number, and you're looking at that odd at 80%, and you're making that bet. What'd you say? Every day almost, right? You're basically trading.
I trade options almost every day. If there's let me go back and say that there's 100 different strategies in playing options. And the one I choose is to play short-term options for income. And so I take the long shot, if you will, or I take the high odds that it's not going to happen. And I'm betting the fact that Apple doesn't drop below 240 by Friday, by 2 days. I can also bet the following week. I don't have to bet just this week, but options expire. Usually, most equity options expire on Fridays at market close.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah. Sure. So if I go out a week to the following to December the 13th, which is 9 days away, if I play that same option on Apple stock, it will pay me $1.25 right now. So I can make $1.25 if I bet Apple stock doesn't drop to 240 by Friday, December the 13th. And what's the odds of that happening? It's only 68%, still in my favor. Not quite as good as 80%. But if I don't want that one, I can take the 235 bet instead of the 240 bet, and bet that it doesn't drop to $235 a share, and the odds are 87% in my favor. You make a little bit less money on it, but that's the beauty of options is you know exactly what your bet is before you ever place it, and you get to choose what odds that you want.
So what kind of odds do you have there's a luxury in that, you can decide how much risk you want to take, and you have control over that risk. It's a defined, they're either going to go above or they're not going to go above a certain number by a certain day. That's an incredible advantage to what people, put in their IRA or whatever. What kind of odd ranges do you usually play?
What I teach beginners is to shoot for the 80% range, and most of mine are done around the 80% because it varies.
Is there a lot like that? Is 80%? Is that once you know how to do this, is there a lot of 80 percenters, 70 percenters, whatever?
Sure.
When you're looking at that trade being made, is there a lot of that, or how does it go?
It's all over the map, JR, as far as 80% is my rule. That's not the rule for the industry, because I can take I can take a high risk bet and bet the 20% side, right? I can bet the 20% side, but I'm only going to win 1 out of 5, right? But when I choose the 80% side, I'll win 8 out of 10. And so the high risk pays higher rewards. The lower risk pays lower rewards. But finding that sweet spot in there where your own risk portfolio, your own risk profile, is important for all beginners. And so what I teach in the beginners doing this is to shoot for around the 80% range, because you won't win all of them, but you'll win 8 out of 10, right? So 8 out of 10,
safe.
Yeah, 8 out of 10 is pretty safe. And then as you get more experienced with it, then you might take a gamble. You might say, oh, well, NVIDIA's got earnings coming up next week. They don't. They just posted earnings here a week or so ago. But you could say, well, let's see who's playing earnings this week that you might recognize. Dollar General is coming up with earnings on Thursday morning. So I can bet Dollar General that it doesn't drop below a certain price after posting earnings. Or if I really have a good feeling of it, I don't know Dollar General, I'm just using it as an example. I know the stock, I know what they do, but it's not one that I trade. But if I had a good feeling that they were going to post good earnings, I might bet closer to that 50-50 range, or maybe the 70-30 range or something. I may, if I have a good, strong feel with it after I get more experience then with the company and knowing what they're doing and things, I'll change my odds a little bit. But on beginners, stick with the 80%, and you'll learn to generate income from options, as I've done.
Wow. So what kind of ROI? You know what type of return on investment do you see on this? And we're going to start needling down to, how much money does it take to do this, so forth and so on. Not to you, all your services, you pick people, and I'm proud to say that producer Barbie is in meetings with you right now, and she's brand new to this new scope, but talk about being excited. So I also have a little bit of a personal input, but what kind of ROI do you get with options?
Okay, that's an excellent question. And in teaching people how to do it, I show them what I do. And I think that you and I, when we talked about it, that I'm generating somewhere between $4,000 and $7,000 a week in option premium. Now it's important to a week. So that's important to realize that that's option premium only. That's not total portfolio value, because if you own stocks, which I do, those stocks also go up in value, or at least you want them to, and so you make appreciated value on the stocks as well. But just an option premium, which I consider quote income from my trading practices and stuff, I'm generating somewhere between $4,000 and $7,000 a week. Last week was a short week, and I did about $6,100. And it was
for 1 week that you were up, and I've heard numbers between $4,000 and $9,000 a week that you're making. Yeah,
and that's just an option premium. Like I said, Jared, the portfolio goes up higher than that because of the stocks that I'm holding.
That's where you were talking about 5 times in 8 years. Yes. That multiplies on itself, right?
Right. But back to your question, and it is a certainly valid question that everyone asks, because I use the example that everybody is on the road to success. Everybody is at a different mile marker. Somebody might enter the ramp with $1 million. Some of them might enter the ramp when they have only $10,000 in an account. So everybody wants to know, well, what can I generate off of my portfolio? And, the old adage that it takes money to make money, very true, because what you're doing is you're generating income off of an asset that you own. And in this case, rather than go and buy houses and get rental property income or rent those houses out, that generates passive income. In this case, I'm doing the same thing, but I'm doing it with options or with stocks and allowing those to generate the income. And I tell you, there's a whole lot less headaches from the stock market than there is in fixing plumbed up, stuffed up toilets on a rental house. So.
Oh my God, you're so right.
Yeah.
that there's been, Barbie and I have some nightmare examples of that exact thing. Can anybody get involved in this, and how much does it cost? Meaning how much? What are your recommendations of these numbers? You're looking at 60-80% odds that you're going to make this bet win. And how much do you recommend getting started with, and can anybody do this?
All great questions, but let me back up and you asked a question about ROI. What kind of ROI can I reasonably expect? And
sorry about that. Yeah.
No, that's a great question, and I danced around it. And of course, my return is on a total portfolio value of the $4,000 to $7,000, $8,000 a week. But what is reasonable to expect? If somebody came to me and they says, "Well, look, I got $100,000 portfolio. How much can I generate?" And I can show you in 5 or 6 steps on a computer with a computer screen. And let you figure out what kind of ROI that you can make based on whatever percentage that you want to bet. On the 80% range, you're looking at on an ROI of 20 to 25%. So if you had a $100,000 portfolio, trading options on a $100,000 portfolio, you can make somewhere between 20 and 25% return on that money. So how much is that? That's $20,000 to $25,000 a year income on that. And if you put your money in a bank account today, you might get a fractional percentage if it's just in a checking account or passbook savings. If you go to CDs, you can get around 4% return for your money. But there's not very many places where you can put your money and make a 20% return on your investment. And that's whether the market goes up or whether it goes down or whether it goes sideways. So you got to realize that option trading, while it's betting on stocks and the movement of stocks, it's not dependent on whether the market goes up or it goes down. The value of the stock is, if the value of the stock goes up or down, then your portfolio loses money or gains money. But in option trading, you're generating premium, what we call premium, every week. And that premium is regardless of the movement of the stock market, okay? So you can do that even in down years. You can still make 20 to 25% ROI even in years where the stock market has been declining, and that's a proven fact. So that's what I do.
No, I would like I know I would like an extra 20 to 25 grand at the low end, because as it builds, obviously, then it's 30 to 40 grand, so on and so forth. That's where going back to, when did you decide to get into this trading? I mean, the stock market doesn't even, the stock market itself, a good year is like 12% gains or something, right?
Well, it depends on which year. Obviously, this has been a good year in the stock market. So the gains, my gains in the portfolio right now over the trailing 12 months, what we call TTM, over the trailing 12 months is about 40%, 39.8% or so is what I've made in my total portfolio. Okay.
Oh, so man, that's crazy.
For me, that's somewhere close to about $1 million. And but that's not all options. That's both stock appreciation and the income that I generate. Let's say the average is $6,000 a week or $5,000 a week. So $5,000 a week times 52, you're making $260,000 a year just in option premium, in addition to the escalation price of the stocks.
How much of a percentage do you have between stocks and options? Do you trade more heavily in the options than the actual stocks, or is that a relative thing?
Well, okay. It's a good question and it's a hard question to answer. And the reason it's a hard question to answer, Jared, is because let's say that I own 100 shares of Apple stock. Okay.
Right.
Because I own the stock, that's an asset. Whether I'm holding it as cash or whether I'm holding it as stock, it's still an asset, right? It's an asset sitting in my bank account. If I got it in cash, then my brokerage pays me a little bit of interest on that money just sitting in cash. If I buy it in stock, the stock value has the ability to appreciate in value or it can decline in value, but it's still an asset. So if I have 100 shares of Apple, I can sell options on that asset. I can sell what's called call options on the asset that I own. So even though Apple may not pay me a dividend, I can make that stock pay me a dividend every week on that asset, whether it be stock or whether it be cash in the account. If it's cash, I sell puts, what's called put options. If it's stock, I sell call options. But in either case, that's where you can generate the 20 to 25% ROI on that asset value. So your stock portfolio, the total value of your portfolio is a combination of cash and stock. Today, I'm about 20% in cash and about 80% in equities, stocks, mutual funds. I don't have a lot of mutual funds, ETFs, things in that nature. So the asset value is a total of cash and stocks. Okay. And so I can still sell options on both of those, sell options using the cash for collateral, sell options using the stock for collateral, and still generate that same 20 to 25% ROI. Now, that 20 to 25%, let me also state, is fairly conservative, because if you're trading stocks like NVIDIA or Tesla that have a high intrinsic volatility, not intrinsic, I'm sorry, implied volatility, stocks that have a high IV, the stocks that actually zigzag high, those are the ones that pay more premium. And if you play the IV stocks, like the ones I just mentioned, then your returns can be closer to 35, 36% returns.
Wow.
But I don't recommend that you start with those, because those are higher risk, higher reward. So you move into those as you get more comfortable with the company and learning about what they do and have a good outlook for their future, etc. And so a lot of this is learning the process of learning what options are and how to trade them. But then don't trade options on stocks that you don't want to own. That forces a new beginner to go back and to learn how to value stocks. Is okay, well, if I'm going to trade options on NVIDIA, I better know a little bit about what NVIDIA does. I got to know a little bit about their prospect for the future. I got to know a little bit about their earnings projections. I got to know a little bit about their fundamentals of the company. Are they making money? Are they losing money? Are they growing their income? So as you get more deeper into it, then it becomes learning about how to fundamentally value companies for your own portfolio.
Yeah, you say that when you say that's important to you, so you're not just going out and looking at Apple and because you've heard the names or this and that. It's what stocks make sense to you, and that I don't want to say have an emotional attachment, but that you're familiar with.
Yes and no. Now, if I'll use the example, JR, if you had a relative come to you and said, JR, look, I need $100,000 in cash to start this business. I got a new business I want to start. I want you to invest $100,000 into it. I want you to be a partner in my company. If you're going to be a partner in it, if you're going to have invested capital in this company, you're going to ask this guy a whole lot of questions, right? You're going to want to know, well, what is the business? Well, what's the product? What is my return? How long is it going to take before you're profitable? How do I get my money back? So if you become a partner with a company, that's what the questions that you're going to want to ask, right? And so
Yes.
stocks are the same way. Whenever you buy a stock in a company, you're a partner with that company. And so you should know a little bit about it. And so I have, JR, I've mentored several people that's come to me, and we'll get into the training side of this here in a few minutes. But I've had a lot of people come to me that says, look at my portfolio and tell me what you think. And I'll look at it, and they'll own some obscure stocks or whatever. And I'll ask the question, well, why did you buy that? Oh, because I saw an article on TikTok that recommended it. On TikTok? You didn't do your own research? Do you even know what this company does? No. Well, then why would you buy the stock then? Because you're a partner in that company. And so I use that as a lead-in tool to teach people to learn about the companies that you're partnering with, because you wouldn't loan your brother money to start a new business that you didn't understand or that you didn't think that was going to pay you back, or just to let him blow your money. Stocks are the exact same way, because companies go out of business every day. And so stockholders get written off all the time. So that's the difference in stock. And so you don't have to know to trade options. I don't have to know the CEO's daily schedule of the company. I don't need to know who his kids are and what his dog's name is, etc. But if I was a partner in that company, then I would want to know those details, right? But as an option 100%. Trader, I don't need to know a lot about that, because I can trade on momentum. And so I need to know less as an option trader than I need to know if I'm a stockholder. Does that make sense?
Oh, it makes 100% sense. It comparing that you're actually a partner in that business. That's a mindset that takes what you're looking at to a higher level. Correct. And a more uncommon level that we have now. Beginners, you have like a social, and we'll get into the actual training part in a minute, but you have the social group that you open up your accounts to, and you teach them what you're talking about. Now, obviously teaching and talking about, teaching is a little deeper, but for people that are unfamiliar or intimidated by the stock market, for new people, they're not going to make 150 grand a year out of the gate, depending on how much money they're trading, they're option trading. So how much does it cost to what's a good number to pull out of your IRA or whatever, and or out of your savings, and start now with what? How much money are you talking about?
There is
starting from zero.
There's no magic number. The only magic number that you have to realize is that you're not going to make $4,000 or $5,000 a week in option trading with a $50,000 portfolio, okay, or $100,000 portfolio. But you can make $20,000 a year on a $100,000 portfolio. So 20,000 divided by 52 weeks is, I don't do the math well that quick, but $600-700 a week maybe. So it just depends on your portfolio. But you mentioned about taking money out and doing this with it. In reality, what I teach and what I instruct others to do is it's what I call the DIY investing. Is don't pay somebody else to manage your money, because nobody is more interested in your money than you are, right? Yeah. And every investment advisor out there, every retirement investment analyst or advisor, RIAs they call them, or FAs, financial advisors, every one of them drains money out of your account. Most of them are at least 1%, some of them 1.5%, and that's whether you make money or not. So I teach people,
that's fees on what they're handling for you.
That's right.
Their fee.
That's right. And I teach DIY investing. So here's an important point when it comes to managing your own portfolio is if you're paying somebody else to do it, they're making money whether you're making money or not. And they make money regardless of how much money you make. They're still making their fees, right? And that doesn't, that's the same whether it be Fidelity, even Fisher Investments. You see the commercials on television about we make more money when you make money. The Fisher Investments, all of these, there's still fees involved in it. They're not doing this for the sake of your benefit. They're doing it for their benefit, right? So I teach do-it-yourself investing. So when you mentioned about taking money out of this and putting it in here, this is the total portfolio. You can trade options in an IRA. You can trade options in a traditional IRA, a Roth IRA, a traditional brokerage account. It doesn't matter what account that you're trading it, but I suggest and push everyone to DIY your own investments and learn enough about it that you could do it. And the reason for that is that you cannot do any worse than the best of those managers. And you say, wait a minute, that doesn't make a bit of sense, because investment advisors do this for a living. Yes, they do it for a living, but if you take a portfolio to an investment advisor, they're going to put you in some stodgy mutual funds, ETFs, maybe some very core stocks. The core stocks are stocks that doesn't vary a lot and that are expected to grow slowly over time. So they'll put you into a portfolio of stocks and hope for the best. You could do the same thing even if you were to put your money and put it into one ETF called SPY. If you put $100,000 in SPY, SPY is a mutual fund that's based on 500 stocks in the S&P 500. Okay. Right. So whether you had $5,000 or $500,000, if you just put it in SPY, you will get the returns of the market every day. And what has it done for the last 25 years? The S&P 500 has returned somewhere in the around 10% per year. I'll have to go back and look at the exact numbers. But so based on that, you can't do any worse than the worst or the best of the money managers, because out of all the 35,000, 36,000 financial advisors in the United States today, 79% of them don't beat the market. Wow. 79%.
And they're charging you.
And they're charging you.
So they're taking points off, right?
They're taking points off.
Because you're paying. Yeah.
Right. Exactly. So I teach everybody is that it's not take a portion of your money. You may want to do that to get started with, but in reality, what you want to do is manage your whole portfolio, because stocks that you own in a 401k program or a IRA program, you can also trade options in those in most cases. In IRAs for sure. In 401ks, it depends on your company setup. But options is the next level. And so if you go to your financial advisor, and I don't care if it's with Schwab, Fidelity, BlackRock, Fisher Investments, etc. If you go to them and say, look, I'm going to pull my money out, I'm going to start trading options. What are they going to tell you? Oh my gosh, you got to be careful. People lose their shirts trading options. I can tell you horror stories to beat the band of people that's lost money trading options. And it's true. The problem is that they're trying to protect their own asset base, number one, but it is true. People can lose money trading options, but there are people that don't understand what they're doing. Today, in reality, options are actually safer. I can show you trades in options that are a lot safer than owning the stock. So it's just like everything else in life is you have to manage the risk.
So you're teaching people this in small groups, and you and I have talked about this several times, and I understand you're teaching others to do this. How did you get started helping them? And because the other side of it is, how much do you charge? And I already know the number is zero. Tell us that story.
Okay. I got pretty good at this after I retired. And so I had a friend of mine come to me, and he moved to Texas from California. One of the guys that was exiting California had a house in California, and he moved to Texas, and he was amazed at how much house that he can buy here for the same house that he had in California. So we got to be friends, and he asked me, he says, Mike, he says, I have this equity in this house in California, and it's been sitting in the bank. I'm in Texas now. I'm fixing to go buy a house. Should I put all my equity that from a house sale in California into this new house? Would that be the smart decision to make? And this was probably about 5-6 years ago. And I said, well, what's the interest rate today? And he says, well, on my new mortgage is going to be 2.75 or 2.85, I think is what he told me, under 3% for a new mortgage,
Okay.
30-year mortgage. And I said, wow, only 3%? I said, then the answer is no, don't put all your equity into the house. He said, well, what can I invest it in that I can make more money on it? I said, options. And so that's where he got started. He said, well, what kind of money can I make trading options? And I said, well, here, let me show you. So I go through the scenario. We did a one-on-one session where I showed him my trading and how I generate income, etc. And after 2 or 3 hours into our training session, he looked at me and he had this epiphany moment. He said, wow, if it's that easy, how come everybody's not doing this?
My thought exactly. Yeah.
And I said, because people don't understand it. They don't want to take the time to learn it. It's not something that interests them, or they're apprehensive about doing it themselves. And I said, but I'll show you. So I taught him how to trade options. And he was my first victim candidate that, and we're still good friends today. I know him. I know his family, his kids. His kids have gone through school, high school, and now in college and things, and he's still trading options today.
Wow.
And you get over a period of years, you get more sophisticated at it. But if the lesson for him is don't put all your equity tied up into a home, because you can take that cash and put it to work, making 25% or better. And especially if the interest on that asset is right.
only costing you 3%, right?
Exactly. So
yeah, just do the math kind of thing, right?
Yeah. And so from there, it kind of ballooned into, wow, this is pretty neat. We need to start a group. I don't know if y'all have it up there, but there's a neighborhood app called Nextdoor. And so he was on Nextdoor, and he got me on Nextdoor, which is an app for social media for the local neighborhood. And it kind of grew into a stock trading or an interest group on Nextdoor, and had several people that showed interest in it. And so I said, well, look, I want to take this offline from the social media aspect, and let's do it as private, because over time you get lots of, like on TikTok, if I was to go on TikTok or YouTube, you would have lots of people that follow you, but they don't interact. And I wanted the interaction. I wanted to be able to teach on a one-on-one level instead of trying to teach the masses, because it's difficult to teach this to the masses, as we mentioned, because everybody's on a different mile marker on the road to success. So anyway, I did the one-on-one with the gentleman, got him involved in it. And since then, over the last 5 years, we've grown to like 31 people in our private chat group. And
can anybody join this group?
JR, only by invitation only. It's not something that I want 1,000 followers on, because
that's kind of where I was going.
Yeah, inside this group, what I want is, I don't want followers, I want participants. And so over the time, we've grown basically just through word of mouth and through association with the people in the group. I had a gentleman that come to me and said, hey, I've got a real good college buddy that I grew up with and went to college in, and this gentleman's in North Carolina, and he really needs some help. Can you help him out? And I said, I'll be happy to counsel with him. So I've done. And what I find is that as we become more interactive as a community in this chat group, is I'm not only advising and teaching on option trading, I'm advising on retirement strategies, on tax avoidance strategies, on do I need a trust, differences between a trust and a will, and other things that all financial education stuff. And so what I've learned is that financial education is really, really lacking in this country, especially in the young people, because it's not taught in schools and colleges. And so,
Right.
People spend more time, and I make this statement all the time, people spend more time in planning their next vacation than they do their retirement.
Yeah, it's true.
It's true. It's very true.
Absolutely. And do I've heard you don't charge people for this at all, right? This is
No.
this is you giving back,
Yes.
pay it forward kind of thing.
That's exactly right, JR. I don't charge for it. I never have and never will. Number one is I don't need the income, but my satisfaction comes
Right.
from the success of others. And so when I see this is my ministry. God has blessed me tremendously over the years, and He's given me the knowledge,
Absolutely.
and He's given me a heart for teaching people how to do this. And so therefore, this is my ministry. This is how I bring people into knowledge of the markets, the financial, of creating wealth, of being financially secure. And we talk about success all the time. Success means a lot of different things to a lot of different people.
Sure.
I'm not a rich person when it comes to, if you compare me with the billionaires and millionaires and stuff out there, but I'm comfortable. Right. I've got enough money, and the old adage is success is a road. It's not a goal. It's a journey. And so success is a lot of different things to a lot of different people. And so helping a 20-something-year-old find a way to shift from working every day for a living and depending on a company for their income to having passive income on the side, or being able to be strong in your own abilities, to me is a great amount of success. And when I see others succeed and learn how to do this, I feel extremely proud.
I know you don't take everybody on and so forth. You have one-on-one meetings to kind of figure out where they are in the system. You're in Dallas area.
Yes.
Do they have to be in that area, or who, to reach out and contact and say, hey, this is what I want to do. And I want to be involved. It's a social, it's a social environment, do you have to be in Dallas area?
No, you don't, JR. You can be anywhere. Like I mentioned, since a lot of my people that have joined us come from diverse backgrounds, all different ages, and everyone's got a different story. Everybody's got a different history that got them to where they're at today. And I have, like I mentioned, I have a gentleman in North Carolina that I converse with regularly. I've got a lady lives south of Houston. I've got Barbie in California.
She's in California, yeah.
Yeah, it doesn't really matter location as much as I have to say the majority of them are local, and we do have socials together. We have lunches together. We had an event here at my house here a couple of weeks ago where we fixed burgers on the grill and had a good time. So a lot of it is the social aspect of it and the friendship side of it. So that's what I was saying is this is not necessarily a build the numbers type of a concept like on a TikTok and followers and things like that, because the numbers
YouTube
don't mean
too.
as much, the numbers don't mean as much to me as it does the satisfaction of creating other success.
Yeah, so you're successful at building wealth. That's obvious, and that's what we've talked about so far today. So what's your recommendations for others in the program today, watching this program today? What's your what's your recommendations for them?
Yeah. Well, let me go back to a story. And you asked a question.
Like your stories.
Yeah. Yeah. You asked a question that I don't know that I fully answered is, can anybody do this?
Right.
From an education standpoint, from a financial standpoint, from a hey, I'm not good at math standpoint. Yes, anybody can learn to do this. You don't have to be a math wizard. You don't have to be a statistical genius to figure it out, because the computers do that work for you. You just have to have the gut feel and the knowledge and the confidence in your trades to step out a little bit on a limb, if you will, to make those trades. And that's where I come into play. That's where I become more of a facilitator than I do a teacher. I teach you how to do it, and I facilitate you doing it. And I take that apprehension out of the process. There's
big.
There's so many good educational places to go on the internet. The trading platforms, whether it be Fidelity, whether it be Schwab. I trade originally with TD Ameritrade. It's now been purchased by Schwab, so all my brokerage accounts are at Schwab. That's not necessarily true. I've got another one with another company also, but there's all kinds of good educational materials within those trading platforms. Okay. And so that's a good place to start. So I become more of a facilitator and show you the meat and potatoes behind the book knowledge. And I use the example is a person, man or woman, will go to college for 8 years to learn how to become a brain surgeon. They'll go through book knowledge, and they'll go through practical experience, and they'll watch others to do it, and they'll watch videos of people doing brain surgery. But until they've actually sliced open that brain, they're not really a surgeon. They just have the knowledge to do so, but they haven't yet practiced it. And that's why they call doctors or in a practice, because they're always practicing their trade. Options are the same way. Is the market is constantly evolving. The market's a lot different today than it was 25, 30 years ago when I started. So you have to constantly practice your skills and hone your skills. It's a lifelong learning process. So you got to get started somewhere. And today's the best way to do that is to start today. But I'll go back to a story.
Go ahead. Sorry.
Because you know me, I can talk forever. But
we talked earlier, and I'm gonna interrupt as least as possible, because we're at about a hour and 10 minutes now, and we're not on any time clock or anything. I want to ask you some other things, last tips and so forth, but where do you go in with your story? Sorry.
Okay. No, it's all right. There was go on Google and Google the marshmallow study. I'm sure you'll find it. And this was a study that was done at a college level many years ago. And basically, it was basically doing with psychology. And so what they did is and you probably have seen quippets about this, but go read the real study, if you will, because it's interesting. It's 5 or 6 pages long, but they took these kids, just random kids, somewhere in the neighborhood of 5 to 7 years old, I think it was the age group, and they brought them into a room, and they had a stranger come in, and the stranger built trust with them, so there wasn't an apprehension with the person with the kid in the classroom, and they conversed, had small talk, and then the adult took and set 2 marshmallows in front of the kid, and he says, "Hey, I'm gonna leave I'll be back in a few minutes. Just leave those there, and when I come back, if your marshmallows are still here, I'll give you 2 more." And so these are 5, 6-year-old kids. So they'd get up and they would film the kids, and the kids would sit there and fidget and look at them and think about them, and then they would back and forth. So about half the kids would pick them up and eat them before the instructor came back in, right? And you can think about those kids that you've known or your own kids and things, and you can picture this story. So after they come back in, if the kids would eat the marshmallows, they didn't get more. If the kids still had the marshmallows there, they'd give them additional. So they did this study on all these kids, and then they followed this for 25 and 30 years later to where they're in middle life, or the middle of their careers, later in life. And they went back and they looked at the fact that the kids that was able to delay their gratification by not eating the marshmallows are the ones that did better in life later on. It's pretty amazing, right? The ones that were able to,
amazing.
The ones that were not, that would resist eating the marshmallow now are the ones that would do better in life later on. And so the lesson for this is when you're building wealth early in life is don't eat the marshmallow. Don't buy the expensive car just because you can afford the payment. Be practical with your expenses and save for your future so that you can build that wealth. Because what I've always taught my two sons is that you never build wealth on paying other people for the use of their money. And that's paying interest. If you can't afford a car, but you need a car, you go buy a car and you're paying interest on that because you're using somebody else's money to buy that car with. Same thing with a home. You're paying mortgage interest because you can't afford to pay the whole thing up front. And so as a result, you're paying others for the use of their money, right? And so you never build wealth. You never build wealth by credit card debt, debt on any asset that's not an appreciating asset, this sort of thing. So that marshmallow story is a lesson for all of us is to not go out and succumb to the enticements of buying out, temptations and all that, etc. And so that's the important thing is you're not going to start at 60 years old with nothing and expect to make a huge income in retirement, right? You have to start earlier in life to get to the point that I was. So that when I retired at 61, it wasn't just all of a sudden. It was planning a 45-year career before then.
Wow. So as we're starting to wrap up here, in that story, you talked about the 20-year-old or the 30-year-old. This is a fundamental place to get ideas and how to better the great middle class, right? I mean, that's what different subjects, different, mental health, politics, finance, and so forth. But you starting at 20 is ideal. Starting at 40 with some assets or 50 with some assets. I know the kids coming up, the cost of housing's gone crazy. Taxes are nuts. There's a change in the administration, but obviously it's going to be a different because it's time and input. But how starting at 60 with nothing is going to give you a difficulty in trying to grow your asset or your revenue base. But starting at 30 and 40, that group of, I call them kids. we call 20 and 30-year-olds and 40-year-olds kids now. I crack up at myself. But what all of that I know depends on how much you have. But as we're kind of starting to wind down here, what is the idea numbers? I mean, in your group, what age group? What you said they come from a different backgrounds and ages. I remember you talked about that 20-year-old, and you talked earlier about you and I talked earlier about somebody that didn't have two nickels to rub together. Kind of closing thoughts, and then I want to get into your last little tidbits of the watchers today.
Yeah, well, and as you can imagine, I've had quite a range and diverse group that we have today. I've got mid 20-year-olds all the way up to I think my oldest member right now is 73. And he's one of my newest ones. And he's a retired business owner that has always paid somebody else to manage his money for him because he was too busy making money. And now he's retired and says, hey, I can do this. I got the time, right? And so I'm teaching him to take his assets and to do the same scenario to generate income off of his assets. Because he does have money to contend with, but he's paying an advisor to manage that for him right now. So as he learns, as he learns how to do it himself and gains that confidence, then I'm sure that his advisor will go away and wonder what happened to him. But then I have 20-year-olds that I think I told you the story. A young lady that came to me and said that she had a portfolio of 4 stocks in her account and said, I said, well, you got Apple stock. Why do you own Apple stock? And she said, well, Apple's a good stock, isn't it? And I said, well, I don't know. What's the fundamentals? Are they making money? Well, yeah, they're a big company. They got to be making money. Well, that don't mean anything, whether they're profitable or not. I said, so you have to learn to look at the fundamentals. So why did you buy Apple? Well, because I like their products. Well, that's a good start. That's know the company. At least you knew the company and what they manufactured. I said, so when you bought Apple stock, where did that stock come from? And she said, Apple. So when you go to your broker and you bought stock bought 100 shares of Apple stock, it came from Apple? Well, yeah, I guess that's where it came from. I said, no, Apple hadn't seen that stock in 40 years. Well, where did it come from? I said, it came from another investor. I said, would it surprise you to know that when Apple sold that stock 40 something years ago, Apple probably received $4 or $5 a share for it. I said, so how much did you pay for it? $180 a share. So then you go through the process. Well, why is it worth $180 today when Apple only received $5 from it and hasn't seen that stock in 40 years? So with certain people, you have to go back and explain how business and the markets operate and why that the stock market even exists. And so all those are really interesting studies. Now, you don't have to know all that stuff to trade options. But it's nice to go back after the fact, and once you get into it, that you start to learn the background information and stuff of the markets and how they operate. So that's the range of people that I deal with on a day-to-day basis. And then, but you mentioned, when's the best time to start? Today. Yeah. You got to start planning today for your future because, like I said, there's 2 things in life that nobody is more interested than you. That's in your health and your wealth. And so if you job out your health to someone else, even your own personal doctor, you can't depend on your own personal doctor to look after your health. So you can't look after your own personal advisor to look after your best interest in your money. So take charge of those 2 things. If you don't take charge of anything else in your life, take charge of your health and your wealth, and you will be happy with the outcome.
That is fantastic. Andy, I've been so excited about this. 1, because you're a friend, and 2, because it's an interesting subject, and we've actually chatted about it a couple times. In your closing thoughts here, what do you think? Any last tidbits for the watchers that are on today? There's been about 700 or so.
Wow. Well, yeah. I'm impressed with the numbers, and obviously I'm a one-man show. I can't handle 700 people being swamped into the group, but I don't mind chatting with people. I'd be more than happy to find out if you're a fit for the group or not, and if it takes work. It's just like everything else in life. The more effort that you put at it, the more effort that you put at it, the better you get at it. And I'm still learning every day. The market evolves, so I have to learn the new markets every day when I get up. But being a facilitator, there's thousands of places out there to learn. Just make sure that it's not the hackers on TikTok or YouTube or these guys that send me money and I'll tell you how to trade. Subscribe to my channel.
That's exactly the opposite of what you're doing, and that's what is so exciting. The other part of looking forward to the show, because you're not one of those hacks that are out there trying to give me money and I'll teach you the secrets of everything.
Yes.
In their 1 hour classes with 50 people around.
Yeah. And I found that I started out that same approach, JR, and trying to do group training, and it's very difficult. A group training while you're doing 30 to 500 people is only a person will spend 2 hours in the classroom and pick up 10 minutes worth of education because the rest of it they already knew, or they'll be so overswamped with it they don't understand anything. So it's hard to do group training in options because everybody's at a different mile marker. So my approach in taking on new candidates right now, I have 3 that I'm doing one-on-one sessions with, including one of those 3 is Barbie. And I've got 2 others that I'm doing one-on-one with now. And so pretty soon they're not even in the group setting yet. I've not even allowed them to join the group session because I want them to know what to expect out of the group. In the group session that I have, and it's a WhatsApp group, it's a private WhatsApp group. In that group, I know the participants. We converse on everything under the sun, whether it be stocks and options or where we're going to eat lunch today. So it's not just stocks and options, but in that group, I post every trade that I do. So we're not with the expectation that I don't really want people following my trades. I want them to learn by the trades that I do.
And then do their own interesting, what they're interested in individually. Don't just copy what you're doing.
Don't just copy me, but look at mine, because I'll put dialogue with mine of why I did that trade. I did this because I think NVIDIA is going to do this, or et cetera, et cetera. I'll put some commentary behind it. And the participants in the group, some of them post their trades, some of them don't. Some of them are different style of traders than I am, and that's great too. It's not just mine is not the only way; it's just one way. And so I think that if the readers here want to contact me, and I'll give an email address. And
Mike, do you want to type that in the I was just going to ask you that. Did you want to type an address that you could be contacted with? And as you're doing that, is there any final thoughts? This has been so educational and so inspiring. And a lot of people in the chat here are very excited about what it is that our show is bringing. Like I said before, our show is about how to add betterment to the great middle class of America, and by extension, the world. How any last thoughts? And you're going to put your email address on there?
I don't know how to do that, JR, but I can give it on the group here, and Barbie can put it in, or you can later, or whatever the case may be. But my email address is Mike, M-I-K-E, at hubscott.com. That's HUBSCOTT.com. And I'll try to get to everyone that responds, and start a dialogue, and then we can see what transpires from there. And no promises. If I'm flooded with emails, just be patient. But my intent is, as we started this, is not to have a huge following, but to help people, truly help people. And that's where my passion is. It's not the ego of having a huge group. But last minute quips: always spend less than what you earn. Make sure that you always spend less than what you earn. The power of compounding assets is real. It works. There's an old adage that I learned back when I was early in, it's a little quip that says, use it up, wear it out, make it do, or do without. And so you'll find that I'm not a flamboyant person. I've got a new vehicle. My wife drives a new QX60 Infinity, and I drive a 25-year-old Yukon beater. so it's not that spend less than you earn. Plan your retirement long before you need to use it. Don't plan a retirement for 6 months down the road when you haven't planned it 6 years in advance. Those kind of things.
Makes perfect sense. Hey, Mike, can you look down in your text box? I've spelled that right, correct?
Yep, that's it.
Should be the last text.
Yeah,
all right.
That's it. Yeah.
All right. Well, today's been fantastic, Mike. I hope we can do some follow-up shows on this and get into some other topics like that. And here we're not gonna you're not gonna want 100 people or 200 people, bombarding you on the thing, but you might be able to pay it forward to a couple more people
Sure.
off of the show, and that makes me a little proud. And we're doing that stuff together. So, yeah. Mike, thank you very much for your time today. I'm gonna close out and wish and leave some of my own final thoughts. But for now, have a great time. We're gonna see each other and all of that, but like we always do. But thank you very much for being here, Mike.
Sounds good, Jared. Good to be here.
Thank you. Have a great night. All right, everybody. So that was Mike Zvolanek. I left his email address in here, and the comments have been fantastic, and a lot of information I learned today. I know that. We're Christmas and the holidays are coming up, during this month. I've got, as I told you before, I've got a software automation guy that I Paven that I work with, and I'm excited to bring him on. And then we're going to do Barron again here shortly. My son's going to come on, but I'm going to push that out the next couple of weeks. I think I'm going to just do individual comments. So stay tuned for those. And just a great time here today. I'm Rod Duff from Insights and Straight Talk with producer Barbie, who's on the text today. And love you guys. Go say hi to somebody. Keep tuning in and hit the subscribe button. The key to this whole thing is each segment that we do is specifically designed to bring each person in the middle class to another level. And, and Mike certainly proved that today. I was fascinated that he has some answers to some things that I'd say almost most, if not all, middle class people don't have access to that. The elites, as he was saying earlier, the big money dollar people are one thing, but this is something that we talked about. We do talk about a utopia on earth, and I see some things coming up that's going to make that thing happen more sooner than I originally anticipated. But here's an aspect in that. So for today, oh, my hair got all messed up. For today, Rod Duff saying, I love you guys. Say hi to somebody, wave at somebody. Let's bring this middle class. It used to be you knew your neighbors. Now, in general, that's not the case. See you next Wednesday. I'll probably be soloing it then, but I'm going to talk about some of the things we're learning now in this transition of administrations. It's going to be interesting. So again, love you guys. Thanks for being here. We shall talk soon.